inside of these periods, you have the appearance of certain things going on, allegedly. For instance, over 5 million years ago, you shouldn't have the appearance of any people of modern type going on in any place. In fact, in the Jurassic period, which is about 213 million years ago, an archaeologist will argue with you down to the bone to say, oh, no, you'll never find evidence of any human beings anywhere on the planet. During the Jurassic period, this is the time period you had these so-called large reptiles that we call dinosaurs, which you found in bones and other things of. But we want to show you from the message of the engraved stones of Ica, depictions of people interacting with these Jurassic period animals. This is why you need to get this particular book. Now, the interesting thing about this is nowhere on the earth do you find this type of depiction. Nowhere. And the reason why that becomes important is because it deals with how old is humanity and what are we going to use to engage that particular subject. One other book that I want to recommend for you, just for your study, which is going to lead right into what we're about to talk about right now, is a book called The Mayan Calendar and the Transformation of Consciousness. It's by a man named Carl Johan Kalaman, The Mayan Calendar and the Transformation of Consciousness. Now, why this is important is because of one thing. Now, we know that the name is not Maya. We call them Amaru. These are Moors. These are the Shi people, the Shia people. And both the Olmec and the Mayan are actually the same people, but archaeologists have given them different names, because that's their job. They divide and they separate because, that is not only in their nature, but, that's a part of their behavior to control the information. So we know from looking at the Bonham-Peck steles what the Mayans phenotypically look like and depicted themselves as. When you go to the Bonham-Peck steles or any other steles that the Mayans had, or the Olmecs, or the Zapotecs, or any of these other groups, what you find very clearly is that they are phenotypically black and brown peoples. They painted those murals thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, and they're still there for us today for those who travel to go and see them. You can go, if you can't travel, go right to your computer, type in Bonham-Peck, B-O-N-A-M-P-E-K, steles, Mayans, and you will get some of the pictures that are available online. We place a lot of those online from being down there and researching. All right, so it leads us to the point of a particular calendar amongst these Moorish aboriginal black people in Central America. And this particular calendar is found in the Yucatan at a place called Coba. And archaeologists will call the monuments Coba steles. That's S-T-E-L-A-E. And when you go to Stele 5, which is actually a totem, the Mayan have a particular calendar that's broken down, that's synchronized with time, days, periods to calculate years, and periods to calculate larger groups of years. The calendar is broken down into days, which are called kins. All right? Our ancestors broke this calendar down. Yunos, which is a 20-day period. 18 Yunos equal 360 days, plus a period that we call the Wayeb, which is a 5-day period, which equals a year, which is called a tune. And when you take 20 tunes, you get a katun, 20, which is 20 years, approximately 7,200 days, which is about 100 days less than that period, a 20-year period. And 20 katuns equals almost a 400-year period, which we call a baktun. And 13 of those equal 13 baktuns where the cycle recycles itself. All right, so we got a 400-year cycle. Now, at Koba, they have a calendar that is 16.4 billion years old. Now, we have to scratch our head and ask ourselves a question. White folks tell us that the planet is only 4.5 billion years old. who on earth would have a calendar 16.4 billion years old? In fact, it's the oldest calendar in the world, right here in the Americas, from black folks that we are descended from that we know nothing about. 16.4 billion years of history etched into a totem to leave for you and me so we'll know who we are. And we are amazed and jumping around thinking we're from some monkeys that are 2 million or 3 million years old. This is the insanity that goes on. Because they're not going to tell you that the Maya are phenotypically black, and they're definitely not going to conventionally tell you that they're connected to the aboriginal tribes of North America who are also phenotypically black, the Cherokee, the Choctaw, Lenape, etc. And that they align their monuments to each other's monuments, meaning that they knew about each other. Therefore, we're dealing with one lineage of people who had a particular type of culture, a science and a math that was preserved amongst them. So when we look and say, who has the oldest calendar on the earth, the question is definitively answered by saying so-called black folk in the Americas have the oldest calendars on the planet. There are no calendars in Europe that are older. There are no calendars in Asia that are older. And there are definitely no calendars in Africa that are older. So now you can go and study for yourself. Get the book. Go travel to the Yucatan, to Copa yourself, do some research, and find this calendar. And you will see the oldest calendar on the planet. It's called the Long Count Calendar. And both the so-called Olmec and the so-called Mayan had it. This is how we know that they are the same people. And not only that, they wrote down the same name for themselves, the Turushi, which is the noble priesthood amongst these aboriginals, or the Amaru. All right? Or the Amaru-Muru. These were the words that they gave themselves. All right? So they left that calendar for us. So if you want to study, you will find that this is the oldest calendar in the world. All right. So any arguments on that will have to be made with our ancestors because they left that for us. And if anybody can find a calendar that's older than that, 16.4 billion years ago, then, hey, I would love it. Bring it on. All right? And we'll be able to argue with you down to the wire to prove that we were here for a long, 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 long time, brothers and sisters. Longer than white folks can even write down in their archaeological books. All right? So you need to study that information. Now, with that being said, 16.4 billion years of history, when you're using the scale of time to go back into years, the geological eras and the periods, the Cenozoic, the Mesozoic, the Paleozoic is the oldest and only goes back to 590 million years. So now the Mayans have a calendar that stretched beyond the modern ability to even calculate the things that they try to calculate in the fossil records and the early microbes and the evolution of life. This goes to show that the whole theory of evolution is a joke. We are thinking that we are evolving, and we are actually devolving. How can a people that eat McDonald's every day evolve?